And we're on.
So good evening, everyone, and welcome to this service for welcoming the Shabbat on this warm and sunny Friday evening. We hope that you will enjoy participating with us at whatever time, if you're following us live or if you're following us subsequently, so that you can share in welcoming the Shabbat. We're reading the second Sabbath evening service, as our Siddur entitles it, which is found on page 75 of Siddur Lev Hadash. I'm delighted that Lois Bencher is going to be taking us into the spirit of Shabbat and has her Shabbat candles ready to light.
Are we ready? Okay. You shall call the Sabbath a delight. These lights we kindle are a symbol of joy. May their brightness lift our spirits and fill our homes with happiness and peace. Baruch atah Adonai Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotov v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. We praise you, eternal God, sovereign of the universe, who sanctify us by your commandments and enjoin us to kindle the Sabbath lights. Amen.
Amen. Shabbat Shalom, Lois. And I wonder, Simon, if you would be happy to read the passage on that page so we can stay in the Bencher household.
The Sabbath has descended to enfold us in its mantle of peace. It brings to us the precious gift of time to embrace family and friends, to reflect more deeply on the meaning and purpose of our lives, and to worship in the beauty of holiness. May our Sabbaths always be sanctuaries of love and devotion, bringing contentment to our hearts, happiness to our homes, and blessings to our people.
Thank you, Simon. This version of Shalom Aleichem was written by the late Debbie Friedman. It was one of her last compositions before her untimely death some 11 or more years ago now, I think. But it captures the sort of mood of Shabbat. We'll sing the traditional words that are in front of us in the Siddur, but it may be worth reminding all of us that when she wrote it herself, Debbie preferred to replace the last verse with not the finality of go in peace, seitchem l'shalom, but with a hope that we can always rely on the angels of Shabbat to return again. And so she would sing Shuvchem, return to us in peace, so that we could anticipate that continued joy of Shabbat. But we'll join together. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Leitchem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So our service continues with Psalm 97, and to lead us through this psalm responsively and come across to Stuart and Ruth, please.
Eternal,
Thank you, Richard.
the Eternal One reigns. Let the earth rejoice.
Let the many isles be glad.
Clouds and darkness surround you.
Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne.
Your lightnings illumine the world.
The earth sees and trembles
Mountains melt like wax before you, O God.
before the ruler of all the earth.
The heavens proclaim your righteousness.
And all the peoples behold your glory.
Zoom hears and is glad,
The daughters of Judah rejoice in your judgments.
for you are supreme over all other gods. All the earth,
You are exalted far above all other gods,
light dawns for the righteous.
and joy for the upright in heart.
Let the righteous rejoice in you.
And give thanks to your holy name.
Thank you both. Yedid nefesh av harachaman mishoch avtecha el retzonecha yarutz avtecha komo ayal yishtachave el mul hadarecha Yerav lo yedidotecha minofet suf v'chol tam higalena ufros chavivi alai et sukat shalomach Ta'eret mikvodecha nagila v'nismecha bach maher ahuv kiva moed v'honenu ki me'olam. As the liturgy in front of us says, we now continue as we move into our evening service on page 92 towards the foot of that page. Baruch hu et Adonai Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Hamevorach, Hamevorach leolam vaed. Hamevorach, Hamevorach leolam vaed. And to lead us in the prayer for the evening, I wonder if I could come across to you, Ed, to lead us in this prayer.
We praise you, Eternal One, our God, Sovereign of the universe, whose word brings on the evening, whose wisdom opens heaven's gates, whose understanding changes times and seasons, and whose will sets the stars in their courses in the sky. You make day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light. You make day pass and bring on the night, and separate day from night. You rule the hosts of heaven. We praise you, O God, whose word makes evening fall. Baruch atah Adonai Hamariv Aravim.
Thank you, Ed. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha ahavta Amcha ahavta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Otanu limadeta Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbeinu Kumeinu nasiach b'chukiecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha U'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed Ki heim chayenu Ve'orech yameinu Uvahem negei yomam v'layla Negei yomam v'layla Ve'ahavatecha al tasu Mimenu le'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Ohev amo Yisrael Ohev amo Yisrael. Now we come to the Shema, that essential part of the Torah that we recite during the evening and morning services. We're commanded to in the words of it. So we join together as we say, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Eternal One is our God. The Eternal God is one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod, Shem Kavod, Malchuto Leolam, Leolam Vaed. Va'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha. V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha. V'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam. V'shiftecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha. Kshartam la'ot al yadecha, v'hayu latotafot beinenecha, uchetavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha. You shall love the Eternal One your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Let these words which I command you this day be always in your heart. Teach them diligently to your children. Speak of them when you in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be like frontlets between your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Laman tizkaru vasitem et kol mitzvotai Bitem kadoshim lelohechem, ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. As we move into this final part of this section of the service, I'd like Tony Kirstein to please lead us in the prayer reminding us of redemption from Egypt and touching on our hopes for future redemption as well.
אמת ואמונה כל זאת קיים עלינו, כי הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואין זולתו, ואנחנו ישראל עמו, הפודנו מיד מלאכים, הגואלנו מכף כל הארצים, ויוצא את עמו ישראל ממצרים לחירות עולם, וראו בניו גבורתו, שבחו והודו לשמו, ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם לך. אנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. Amocha Kedar Bakodesh Nora Tehilot Osefele Nora Tehilot Osefele Adonai Imlo Leolam Vaed Adonai Imloch Leolam Vaed Leolam Vaed V'ne'emar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov Uga'alo miyad chazak mimenu. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. We praise you, O God, Redeemer of Israel. I wonder if I might come across to ask either Tina or David to read this passage that precedes the evening tefillah for us.
Grant, eternal God, that we may lie down in peace, and let us rise up to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your wise counsel, and for your name's sake be our help. Shield us from sickness and war, from famine and distress, and keep us from wrongdoing. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you are our guardian and deliverer, a gracious and merciful God. Guard our going out and our coming in that now and always we may have life and peace. We praise you, O God. May your sheltering peace descend on us and all who dwell on earth. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu v'al kol yoshvei tever.
Thank you. And as we come to the tefillah, I'll lead us in the opening meditation, the Adonai Svatai, and once those who have the desire to physically have risen, I wonder if I might come across to Rabbi David and Fiona to lead us through the first three passages of the tefillah up to the end of Kedushat Hayom, or the Kedushat passage in a couple of pages' time. Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufia Giteilatecha. Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufia Giteilatecha.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot ve'Imachot, U'Mevii Geula livnei v'neihem, Lama'an Shemo b'Achava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Machayei metim atah Rav lehoshia, Mashiv haruach u'morid hageshem, Mazriach hashemesh u'morid hatal. Megolgel ha'im b'chesed, Mahayei metim b'rachamim rabim. Somech noflim v'rofeh cholim u'matir asurim u'mekayem emunato l'shenei טובה, מלחמות בעל גבורות, ומדומך מלך מימית מחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני לחיי המתים. We praise you, O God, source of eternal life. קדוש אתה ונורא שמך, ואין לנו אלוהים מבלעדיך, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. We praise you, eternal one, the holy God.
Thank you both very much. And if David Gold would be happy to read this passage about the Sabbath day for us.
We thank you, O God, for this Sabbath day, which calls us to a closer communion with you. Though you are near to us at all times, we reveal your presence most clearly when we direct our thoughts towards you in worship and meditation. In you, O God, our humanity is exalted. You are our life. From you come its greatness, its power, its beauty. Establish in us, we humbly pray, a devotion to you that shall be firm in all the circumstances of life. May this service renew in our hearts the sense of your presence and bring us peace.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וכי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. So we come to the top of page 100. Wonder if Miriam would be happy to lead us in this prayer that continues our celebration of Shabbat.
Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu, v'tzei b'mnuchatenu, katshenu b'mitzvotecha, v'tein chelkeinu b'toratecha, sabeinu b'tuvecha, v'samchenu b'shuatecha, v'tahei libeinu le'ovtecha be'emet, v'hanchilenu Adonai Eloheinu, v'ahava v'ratzon Shabbat kodshecha, v'anuchu va Yisrael mekadeshei shemecha, baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. We praise you, O God, for the holiness of the Sabbath.
Thank you, Miriam. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu ba'amcha Yisrael, u'tefilatam ba'ahavat kabel, u'tehil ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadcha b'yira na'avod. We praise you, O God, whom alone we worship in reverence. And to lead us in the Thanksgiving prayer, and if I might come to Nick, who is, of course, assisting with the streaming this evening. Nick.
We give thanks that you, eternal God, are our God. As you were the God of our ancestors, you are the rock of our life, the power that shields us in every age. We thank and praise you for our lives, which are in your hand, for our souls, which are in your keeping, for the signs of your presence we encounter every day, and for your wondrous gifts at all times, morning, noon, and night. We praise you, O God, source of goodness, to whom our thanks are due. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lechodot.
Thank you, Nick. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon b'chol hashalom. Ata hu melech adon b'chol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Baruch atah Adonai, Osei HaShalom. We praise you, O God, the source of peace. As is traditional in services, we take a couple of moments now for silent prayer. This may be our own thoughts and prayers, or you may wish to read your way through the prayers that are at the foot of page 101 and into page 102 before we conclude our tefillah service with the Osei Shalom at the foot of page 102. June will gradually take us towards that point as we go. Take a couple of moments. Osei Shalom bimromav, Hu Yasei Shalom aleinu, Ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol b'nei Adam. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol b'nei Adam. This point we'll come away from the liturgy and cease the sharing for just a few minutes. First, I'm hoping that we will be able to share a moment of prayer for those who we know within our families, within our community, and beyond our community in other communities, wherever they are, who are going through times that mean that they warrant our prayers, that they should find some healing. The statement that they should find a refuah shalema, a return to some kind of wholeness, completeness and tranquility, which is reflected in that root word of shalom and shalem. And so we're going to hold names, I'm sure, in our minds as I invite you to join with me as we'll sing through a prayer for healing, in the knowledge that the world needs the opportunity to heal in so many different ways. We'll perhaps come back to that in just a couple of moments. Mishabera avotenu lekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishabera imotenu Makor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. How do we go about bringing healing to a world that needs so much to be healed? Last week we held our synagogue AGM and we talked a little bit about bringing healing and bringing new energy to a community that has supported each other so much through the very acute phases of the COVID crisis that first beset us really in March 2020. And we've been through lots of waves and phases and different forms of mitigations or protections or restrictions, depending on how we call them. And we know that so many people are still struggling either with long COVID or with the effects of this era on us. It has been a major trauma, a traumatic experience for all of us. We also have seen reminders again this week of the trauma that is besetting Ukraine. And I would guess that many of you watched kind of with your jaws dropping as Sergei Lavrov presented a very alternative view of the situation in his interview with the BBC's Steve Rosenberg. And it reminds us that if we're to find healing, we also have to hold fast to values that we hold dear. Healing cannot come in a world where people can speak what they, I'm sure, know is untrue, but are playing politics with the truth as well as with people's lives. We know that healing cannot come in a society that is fractured by the politics of division rather than the politics of care, compassion and kindness. We also know that healing relies on those who hold with the principles of justice, of freedom, of responsibility, of compassion, of kindness. Don't fall into the trap of being meek in the support of those values. And I guess one of my critiques of liberal Judaism in this 120th year of its life is that while we've come up with some very wise, very insightful teachings about how we and the world can coexist best together, we haven't been the best at broadcasting them, at sending them out so that other people can hear them and hopefully perhaps have the chance of being persuaded by them. And if anything, we need to be willing to make sure that we speak up, that we put our values out in wider society, that we challenge those whose attitudes are underpinned by selfishness, self-aggrandizement, by political opportunism, or by indeed the politics of authoritarianism that go against so many of these good principles. And so I'm hoping that we will advance healing. However hot the temperature of the world may be, and I don't just mean the physical temperature this evening that has seen more congregants, in my view, fanning themselves, or if they're in a household of two, fanning each other to keep cool. But I also mean that we will look to be cool-headed rather than hot-headed, that we will be assertive in our promotion of our principles and the values of society rather than aggressive in the presentation of those, and that we will assertively expect other people not to be aggressive in the society that we live in, so that we can perhaps yield through greater impact of the politics, the morality of moderation yield a benefit that brings what's often called the quiet, the silent majority together, so that if it is indeed a majority, when it starts to speak and speak with that wisdom, that compassion, that caring that I think we would still sense is the majority view, then actually other people have to recognize, if nothing else, that they don't hold the power because they aren't in the majority themselves. And so I guess as we come through this hottest day of the year, perhaps we can be cool-headed. Perhaps we can be determined. Perhaps we can believe that the heat of those who are hot-headed will burn itself out in some way, or that we can help it be extinguished, so that good and truth and kindness and compassion will come to be more dominant in the world. With those hopes, we dare look towards the future and say the word in Hebrew, Aleinu. Aleinu meaning it is upon us. It is our responsibility. And although the text of the liturgy is talking about it in very theological terms about bringing about God's kingdom, what we're really saying is it's our role to build about the future so that it is better than the past or the present, so that we can take ourselves nearer to that desired state that we all hope for and aspire towards. And so with that in mind, let's come to page 520 in our Siddurim, and June will resume the screen share and show us that page just now, so that we can commit ourselves and each other to that search for and that work of bringing about a kinder world. June, I'll lead us through page 520, and when we come to the top of page 521, I'd be grateful if you would read that page or lead us in the reading of that page, please. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, אשר שם חלקנו לייחד את שמו, וגור עלינו להמליך מלכותו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד.
Richard, you're muted.
Oh, I think I'm supposed to be reading.
Sorry, I was waiting for June to pick up.
Sorry, I can't see Richard. Oh, now I can. Trusting in you, eternal God, we hope soon to behold the glory of your might, when false gods will vanish from our hearts and idolatry cease forever. Help us to perfect the world by bringing it under your unchallenged rule, when all will invoke your name, relinquish evil, and turn to you alone. May all who dwell on earth come to know that to you every knee must bend and every tongue swear loyalty. Before you, let them humble themselves, and to your glorious name, let them give honor. Let all submit to your sovereign rule. May that time come soon and last forever. For ultimate sovereignty is yours, and to all eternity you will reign in glory. As it is written, the Eternal One shall reign forever. And it has been said, the Eternal God shall rule over all the earth. On that day, the Eternal God shall be one and known to be one.
V'nema v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yihyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. We'll come to the top of page 523, the fourth of these meditations before Kaddish. It is hard to feel serene when our world is not complete, when those who once brought wholeness to our life are gone. Yet, in the emptiness their passing leaves behind, we are not alone, for we have the companionship of the living, and even our loved ones who have died live on in our hearts, for what they were is part of what we have become. We honour them best when we live as they would wish, responsibly and happily, even in the shadow of our loss, and so draw closer to the source of life, in whom every life finds meaning, purpose, and hope. On this Shabbat, we remember those who have died in the past 30 days in particular. And so on this Shabbat, we remember Stephen Phillips, the son of our member Lawrence Phillips. And we also remember Richard Fryer, the father of our member Ben Fryer. As is tradition, we also remember those for whom this coming few days ahead of us will mark the yahrzeit, the anniversary of the death of one of their loved ones. And so we join with Judy Berkowitz in remembering her son Andrew Berkowitz, whose yahrzeit falls tomorrow. And we also join with our members Georgina Wiseman in remembering Cyril Wiseman, her husband, with Lynn Jacobi, who's off camera here, in remembering her father Lewis Walton, with Andrea Greatorex in remembering her father Bernard Marks, with Jean Somerbell in remembering Mayor Margaret, his father, with John Morrison, who is remembering his father Mark Morrison, a true stalwart of the North London Progressive Synagogue in his time. We join with Helen Friedman in remembering her father Mo Levy, and with Ruth Harris in remembering her father Arnold Wollman. I also see that June Bradbury has asked me to mention Yaffa Ketko, who sadly died earlier this week. And she sounds as though she was a true Eshet Chayil, a strong and remarkable woman, and so we remember her as well. And if there should be anyone else that our congregation this evening is remembering, then I'm happy to hear their names as well on this Erev Shabbat. There aren't any other names to add, then we move to the next page, where I invite you to join with me in the recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, ba'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chaye echon v'yom echon, u'v'chaye d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabba mevarach la'alam u'la'almei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalei v'yithalal shemei dekudashah b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol b'nei adam, v'imru amen. Before we move to our concluding song for this evening's service, Stuart, I'm hoping that you'll be comfortable making some announcements for our community.
Thanks, Richard. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you, Richard, for leading us through this extremely hot service tonight. Thanks to June for hosting, and for Nick for streaming, and all who took part. Thank you. It's lovely tonight to see our newly re-elected president and vice presidents all on screen, Simon and June and Miriam. We'll see you all together. Tomorrow morning's service begins at 10:45 and is led by Ben. 11s go on all week, from Monday to Thursday, not all week, Monday to Thursday from 11 o'clock, sensibly. And on Tuesday evening at 7:30, there's a talk by Elliot Paul on the history of livery companies of the City of London. And Elliot is the current master of the worshipful company of Wheelwright. So you should certainly know what he's talking about. So which he always does it. He's very clever. So wishing a long life to Lynn and to all who mourn, and particularly tonight, Nick has streamed brilliantly, and he was the one that I think set all this up and set, well, so much of our technology, and it's been such a masterpiece over the last couple of years. And this is his last Shabbat before he has a period of leave, and then here be sort of working a little bit of us during the summer, and then going off into his new career. But of course, we wish him all well later. But Nick, just on the public say thank you. You know how much you meant to all of us, to me, and wish you well. And of course, see you anyway around a lot. So Shabbat Shalom to everyone, and thanks.
Thank you so much, Stuart. And let's conclude perhaps briefly at page 530, page 530, which is the final of the concluding blessings. And we'll sing that, and I hope you will join with me if you wish. But I'm going to precede it with the traditional home ritual, which asks that God might make, it would we say traditionally the boys to be like Ephraim and Manasseh, and the girls to be like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel and Leah. June, you were right to be at the foot of the page, because we'll be coming to the Yevarechecha as the second half of this. Yesimcha Elohim k'Ephraim v'chim Menashe Yesimech Elohim k'Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yartem lecha shalom Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom v'yasem lecha shalom. Some of you might recognize that that was a composition by our friend Dean Staker, and he originally wrote it, and I'm pleased to say I can claim credit for suggesting it to him as a song that he might write for the occasion of his son Amon's bar mitzvah, and he did Amon and himself proud with it. Let's move, if we may, straight to the Erev Shabbat Kiddush, which is on page 564 in the Siddur, page 564. And I do hope that everyone has got some Kiddush wine or grape juice or something that they can join in Erev Shabbat Kiddush with us. ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maseh v'reishit, Ki hu yom techila lemikrai kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim, ki vanu vacharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol hamim, v'shabat kodshecha, b'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Amen. L'chaim to everyone. finally we reach out across all our screens and our homes to each other and to the wider community, wherever you may be. And we join in singing together, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Wish everybody Shabbat Shalom, and as people partake of their challah, I'd like to say to all those who have joined us on the stream, thank you for joining us. We all wish you Shabbat Shalom, and may you have a peaceful, cool and enjoyable time over this Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, and farewell to all those who are